Very good evening to you. Welcome to another Newsmaker Live broadcast right here on the DBS television. We're on the television screens as well as on Facebook. We'll be together until 10 o'clock this evening, at which time we'll be concluding with the clip that peaked. As promised, between now and 10 o'clock this evening, we'll be reviewing the performance of the United Workers' Party administration. Tomorrow marks its third anniversary, and you'll be given an opportunity to give us your assessment during the course of this evening's Newsmaker Live broadcast, and that is when we open the lines. Well, to be a part of this assessment is the acting Prime Minister. He is also the MP for Grosile, as well as the Minister with responsibility for equity, social justice, local government, and empowerment. I don't know if we'll get a fair assessment from him, but nonetheless, he's on the broadcast, and that's where the neutral role will be played by some of our viewers when they call in, and even supporters of your party will be able to call, as well as people who are supporting the St. Lucia Labour Party as well. Mr. Acting Prime Minister, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Tim, and good evening to viewers. And Tim, I assure you, you'll not only get a fair but verifiable assessment of our performance.
How do you get to act as Prime Minister? Because from time to time, Mr. Guy Joseph will serve as Acting Prime Minister, Ezekiel Joseph, as well as Education Minister Dr. Gail Rigobert.
Well, of course, it is the prerogative of the Prime Minister to determine who acts in his stead when he's out of the island. But then, of course, you have the deputies who, if they are on island at the time, would most likely be given priority to act. Of course, Honorable Ezekiel Joseph is on island, but he's not well. Then, if they are not, or they are unable to, then you go down the ranks according to seniority. So at times you'd find Honorable King would act, Honorable Guy Joseph, myself, and if you make an assessment, you realize we are among the more senior members of cabinet, and so I think basically that would be the criteria that would determine, and of course the Prime Minister would decide among us who he would choose to act in his stead.
What's it like acting as Prime Minister?
Well, it's very hectic because do not forget I still have my portfolio to attend to. I have my constituency to deal with, and so it's a lot more hectic. I have additional responsibilities, and so, but like anything else, it's when you decide to enter into a life of service, you have to answer the calling whenever you're called upon, whenever you're pointed out, And it's my pleasure to do it. I mean, it is not as if by acting you have an additional salary or anything like that, but I mean, it is a good experience for the individual, and of course, it's an opportunity for me to, play a role at a different level, which I welcome and I'm happy to do.
How do you react to people who tell you that the novelty has run off, this spider novelty? You remember in 2001, when you came on the scene and you contested joint elections unsuccessfully at that. People still saw you as a breath of fresh air and somebody for the future. In 2006, you won.
Well, novelty is what it is. As it suggests, it will not last forever. But the novelty has worn off, and we're dealing with the reality. And the reality is, I am what I am who I am, and you're seeing now what you get. And I am in a position to defend my record of performance, and that is what stands for me. That's what carries me, and that is what matters more than assumptions, excitement, and novelty. And like I said, now we're dealing with reality.
And also, for some people, the reality could be that you have not performed.
Well, of course, and I will have a response to that. And I mean, of course, depending on sides, people say things. But when we deal with, again, I'm talking about reality. I will not just say to you that I have performed. Like I said to you, what I say to you is verifiable. I will point to what it is that has been accomplished under my watch. I will point to you what it is that I have done in terms of my achievements, my accomplishments, my performance as a parliamentary representative. And I'm proud to say my record can stand against any.
But as MP, even of late, you had some minibus drivers who were taking issue with the deplorable state of some roads in your constituency, to the extent that they threatened that very soon that they will be withdrawing their services.
Well, I responded to that, and as I indicated, and I'm going to repeat again, that was quite unjustifiable. the action and even the claims that they were making. And if you listen carefully, they were saying that, yes, the road is being maintained, it is being attended to, but they do not want potholing, they want resurfacing. Of course, I indicated during my budget address and subsequently on several other occasions that we have intentions of addressing that situation, of resurfacing that actual road from Moshi to Deramo, from Deramo to Riviera Mita. We have indicated that that will be done under the road rehabilitation program, the national road rehabilitation program that the government will be undertaking, which is about to be launched. But in the interim, I will not just allow the road to be in a deplorable and impassable condition. We have to allay the plight of the road users, both commuters and pedestrians, by ensuring that it is in a condition that at least it doesn't cause undue expense and discomfort by potholing and doing regular maintenance. And for the bus drivers to come out and say they do not want potholing, it has to be this and so on. I think that was a little, out of place if you ask me, especially when they know that there is a plan in place to resurface the road. So that was totally uncalled for and unnecessary, because I have met with them before. I've indicated our government's intention to do just what they're asking for. So, I mean, we are approaching the season where the agitation will begin, and you'll find all of those games being played, but that is nothing new to me.
But it appears that two particular issues normally plague MPs in the Gros-Islet constituency. That will be the deplorable state of the roads in those communities, and also the availability of potable water.
Well, that is because on the issue of the roads, that is because we have by far the most roads in Gros-Islet because of all those residential developments, and compounded by the fact that those residential developments have substandard infrastructure. And of course, you have to blame government too for that, because they have accepted those substandard roads, without setting a particular and insisting on a particular standard. So when those roads are handed over, they are handed over in a deplorable condition. So we have by far the most roads and by far the most deplorable roads. And I will venture to say, as I said during my campaign, I will make a significant dent on the road conditions of my constituency, but there's no way in 5 years I will be able to address every road in the constituency. But we are giving priority according to conditions, according to needs, on merit, so to speak. So I will say to you now that by the end of my term, I would have addressed more mileage or kilometers in terms of road repairs than anyone would have done before my time, before anybody else's time. And I'm sure while the residents, every resident would like to know that his or her road is addressed, that will not happen, but they will be satisfied that I would have made a significant dent in the upgrade of the roads in my constituency.
You controversially lost the seat in 2011 to Ms. Emma Hippolyte, and you gained it in 2016. Yes. 3 years after, what have you done differently this time around? Because obviously you lost for a particular reason, controversially or not.
Yes.
Had you lost, let's say, by 2 or 3 votes or 5 votes, it would still be seen as a significant defeat, considering your performance in the 2006 general election.
Well, and if you consider my performance as a parliamentary representative, then, you have to ask yourself sometimes, what it is really that voters are looking for. And I've asked myself that question. And I know that there was no dispute as to whether or not I performed. Like I said, my record of performance can stand against any. I think there were other factors that came to the fore, and that was brought to bear on the results of the elections. Of course, I'm in a constituency, and if I may say so myself, I'm in a constituency where I have the most discerning voters. You have the most independent voters. And you have a constituency where people don't have blind allegiance, and a lot of factors that will not impact other constituencies will impact my constituency. So if there are issues with the national image of the government, I will be most affected. If there is an issue with any member of the cabinet of my party, I will be most affected. Even if I have performed as a parliamentary representative, the national picture will have a significant impact on me as a candidate. Even, for example, in talking about performing, it happened to me Miss Emma Hippolyte capitalized on it, profited from it, but it also happened to her. Say, for example, we're talking about road repairs, and I've insisted to my government that by next year, I would want to ensure that I would have done the majority, the bulk of the roadworks that I have to do in my constituency. Because I recognize and I understand the kind of constituents that I am serving. They will not accept on the eve of election for me to come to do the bulk of the road repairs that I have to do. They see it as an insult, they see it as disrespect, and they will not accept it. So all of those factors have to be taken into consideration. Despite the fact that I'm given 5 years, I know that there are certain things I have to do before the 5th year. You know, so all of the number of factors. I mean, if the national economy is not performing to the satisfaction of the people in my constituents, given the number of business people, given the caliber of people that are in my constituency, they will be more acutely conscious and aware of that situation, and it will have a greater impact on them than probably the average constituency, and that it will impact their decisions as to who they're going to cast their vote for or not.
What do you make of the other constituents? If you say that your constituents are discerning and also independent.
Okay, you go to an agricultural constituency. Their concerns and interests will be slightly different to that of my constituents. I mean, if, let us for example, we are able to get increased market share for bananas, there a lot would be improved tremendously. They'll be making money and so on, and that would be their concern. They would not be concerned about other issues, and they would not be as acutely interested or preoccupied with, for example, a scandal that is not directly impacting their constituency and so on, as opposed to my constituency. So, I mean, I say so not to be degrading to any others or anything like that. I'm just saying there are certain nuances that exist in one constituency that does not exist in another, and there are differences in the composition and structure of the constituency. My constituency has among the most affluent people in this country, the more business people involved in commerce. My constituency also has a rural side of it. I have everything you can imagine. I represent the entire spectrum. And so that makes my constituency a sophisticated and very delicate constituency to deal with.
In a constituency you're looking forward to represent again and to contest the next round election? Because you contested in 2001, then 2006, 2011, 16, and you're looking forward to contesting 2021?
Certainly, because after this term, I think I would have made a significant dent in terms of the advancement, the progress, the development of the constituency, but my work could not have been done, so I'll be asking the residents, the constituents, for an opportunity to complete that work, and then I'll probably consider bowing out if they have not terminated my tenure by then. Because if I'm unsuccessful, I can say to you as of now, I will see it as a message from the constituents that they wish to move on, and I will respect that.
It appears that politicians just do not know when to quit.
Well, I wouldn't say so of myself. I don't think I'm expired yet. I think I still have a contribution to make, and that will be judged at the end of my term by my performance. And I can assure you that I'm very confident that I will be judged favorably because of the performance that I would have been able to achieve.
I'm hearing that Kenson Casimir is scheduled to contest that seat against you on a St. Lucia Labour Party ticket. This time around, you're not expected to contest against Miss Emma Hippolyte.
Well, to be very honest with you, I will not engage at this time in any speculation as to who will or will not. All I know is that we're in a democratic system. There will be someone who will be contesting against me. I look forward to the challenge. I think I will be up to the challenge, and I will be making my case and stating my claim for re-election when the time comes. That is my primary and predominant focus.
What if it is Kenson Casimir?
Well, if it is, then we deal with that situation. When we get to that bridge, we'll decide how to cross it. At this time, I am not willing to venture into speculation. If you declare yourself tomorrow, Tim, then you become my opponent, I will address that. But for now, If someone were to say to me that Tim will be my opponent, well, if that is the case, then let it be. Because the last thing I want to do is to heap condemnation on anyone who wishes to offer his or herself for service to the nation. I think there is enough abuse, leveled at people who offer themselves. I think it's a noble thing for anyone to offer his or herself for service to his country, to his nation. And as such, I respect the democratic process. I understand that it will be a contest. I am prepared to contend. And that is as far as I'm willing to go.
Well, it doesn't make a difference right now, although we're not certain whether it's Kenson Casimir. But does it make a difference if it's Kenson Casimir or Thurell Prudent?
Well, you see, it is not for me to decide. I mean, it is for the opposition to decide who they wish to select. And it is for Kenson Casimir, if he is in fact interested, and Thurell Prudent, who has openly declared his interest, to deal with each other to ensure that they state their claim, make their case, and win their nomination. I think that is the first step for them. I leave that to them. I do not want to get involved or engaged in Labour Party politics. I'm dealing with my own politics in the United Workers' Party.
The size of the constituency has been an issue for you, and even Definitely. I think last week you made reference to it.
That's right.
Are you looking forward to, for example, the Electoral Boundaries Commission, Boundaries Commission, recommending that we have some kind of adjustment being made to the constituency? Because I think just prior to the last general election, there was a recommendation that it be split into 3 constituencies. That would be North, Central, and South.
Yes. Now, I've been unequivocal as far as my support for the cutting of the constituency. There was a proposal put forward by the previous administration, and I've indicated in no uncertain terms that I support a cut of the constituency, and I even would be prepared to support the cut as proposed by the previous administration. Of course, everything in government takes forever. It is an eternity for everything to happen. The wheels of government turns very slowly, and I have to express a measure of disappointment that I suspect that we may not achieve that goal before the next election. I'm still hopeful that it will happen. I think it may. I'm hoping that it does for the benefit of the constituents of that constituency. I think we are shortchanged. We are shortchanged big time because we tend to have an approach in government where we distribute resources equally rather than equitably. Having the change in the boundaries, cutting the constituency into 3 constituencies will bring about a more equitable distribution of resources for the benefit of the constituents of Groseley. I believe that. In the meantime, if I am to contest the Groseley seat as is, I am more than willing, prepared, and able to manage it as it is right now, as I have been doing. But, like I said, I make no bones about stating that I am in favor of a cut of the constituency.
But changing the boundaries sometimes can be challenged legally. Yes. Is that what happened just prior to the last general election?
Well, the challenge was not for the Groseley constituency. You would recall the challenge was put forward by the Honorable Guy Joseph because he had concerns about the recommendation that was made in his area. But I have remained consistent on my position as far as Groseley is concerned, and I don't have any issue with the proposed change. And one might say if it is the previous administration who makes the recommendation, they will naturally make it in their favor. I'm not even looking at that. I'm looking at the bigger picture. I think it will redound to the benefit of the constituents of Groseley, and that is my primary consideration.
Would you have a particular preference? Would it be Groseley North, Groseley Central, or Groseley South?
Naturally, I would have a particular preference, but that is something I would have to deliberate upon. And of course, the sentiments of the constituents in the 3 different departments, new constituencies, would have to be taken into consideration. So if and when that time comes, I will not just unilaterally decide upon my own that I will go here or there. I will do that in consultation with the constituents.
But can we afford more constituencies? We're already at 17. Any adjustment might mean we could have additional seats, at least 21 constituencies.
Yes, but remember that we have a constitution that we have to honor, that we have to abide by. And what currently obtains is in contravention of the Constitution, because the Constitution stipulates guidelines as to what should obtain in a constituency, and grossly violates that.
How are people impacted because of the size of the constituency right now?
Okay, take for example, in the distribution of resources, and I'm going to give practical, real examples. Here are allocations given for CDP, the Community Development Projects. Grosley is given $1 million. For argument's sake, let's take Castries is given $1 million. Look at the size, the infrastructure in Grosley, the number of residents in Grosley. Do you think that is justifiable, that I get the same amount as other constituencies that are a fraction of the size of my constituency? It cannot be justified. That is inequitable. And that is always my plea, that is always my concern. And I'm saying, if, for example, you are concerned about the increase, which I think, well, there's a price to everything, and good governance carries a price tag as well. And if you are to serve your people in the way that they ought to be, and there's a price to it, then so be it. But if we are concerned about the price tag, and we have to say, okay, let us remain because we are concerned about the additional expense of having 2 additional parliamentary representatives, then give that individual who is represented in that constituency 3 times, 4 times, twice the resources that you provide to other constituencies. And I mean, I know you will tell me here is not the place to state that claim and to make that case, but my parliamentary colleagues can tell you that I am vociferously making that case. And I'm sure that you will see that reflected in the allocation of resources for roads. Not just because I am bigger, but I have by far the most roads and by far the most deplorable roads. So you will notice that I will get some more resources. I will never tell you that it will be enough, Tim. It will never be enough. Because if they give me the entire budget, I can do with it. I can do with it. But I'm satisfied that a recognition has been paid to that claim that has been put forward, that I need to get a more equitable share of the resources of this country, not only because of the sheer size of the, and if you have to look at it from the other angle, consider the contribution that my constituency makes to national development and the national purse. You know, I think we are entitled to it, and so as the representative for Grosley, I'm making the claim for it. I'm satisfied and happy to see that my colleagues, my parliamentary colleagues, the Honorable Prime Minister, Minister of Finance, has accepted and recognized that there's justification in that claim, and that will be reflected in the resources.
Of course, later in the broadcast, we'll be reviewing the performance of the government as far as its stewardship of St. Lucia is concerned. But what about your stewardship of the Grosley constituency?
Well, I mean, it has been challenging because, for example, the first year, it was an uphill task given the limited resources. We operated on a budget that had been already in operation, and we spent a lot of time dealing with outstanding debts and so on. I did not get the kind of resources that I would have liked in the first year to hit the ground running as I would have wanted to. Of course, in the second year, we began to, get our way and begin to implement and make the constituents realize some of the promises that we made, and I'm satisfied that we are along the right path as far as that is concerned. And in this current year, we are continuing that trend, and I'm satisfied and happy that we are along the right path. But I say to our constituents that initially some of the proprietary work has been done. Now you're going to see a rollout of a lot of the proprietary work that has been done, and in this coming year, I expect that they will see a big jump in terms of the level of delivery that as far as projects and programs that were promised is concerned.
Is it by next year? Projects
during this year.
During the course of this year?
This financial year.
Because then
when I say this year, this financial year.
Yeah, because you made reference to it early on, because last-minute initiatives, the rush to undertake various infrastructural works and other initiatives clearly would indicate to the people that, the government did not really put its house in order, and is basically engaging in those initiatives primarily because it is on the cusp of contesting a general election.
Right, and sometimes there's some justification to that. Sometimes it is not exactly the case because, like everyone knows, there's a lot of bureaucracy in government, and despite your best efforts, sometimes things take a lot longer than you would like, and I'm complaining about that all of the time. And I would like to know that, we spend some of our time as well dismantling some of the unnecessary bureaucracy without compromising transparency and accountability, that we dismantle some of the unnecessary bureaucracy that unduly delay the delivery of services and programs to the constituents. And that is my plea. And now, as Minister of Local Government, for example, we are looking at local government reform, where we're going to give a lot more authority to the local government, a lot more teeth to local government in terms of actually performing and operating as local government.
How about local government elections?
That is one of the things that we are looking at. And I know
before the life of this government ends,
I'm hoping that before 2021 we can introduce local government elections. It is an uphill task, I can tell you that. I do not have universal support on that one. But even if, and I've gotten my parliamentary colleagues to at least agree that we can phase it in. We will not have outright, but if you have a 9-member council, perhaps you're going to have elections of 5 members, appointment of 4, because politicians don't want to relinquish control or power. And there is that threat, obviously, that if you give too much power to local government. But we have to go past that. We have to look beyond that and look at the bigger picture in terms of national development, what local government can actually accomplish in terms of delivering more to the constituents. And at the same time, serving as a breeding ground for leaders. Where you can, because you see, you, Timothy, might just come out of the blue and present yourself for elective office. I don't know what your capabilities are. I have to just trust your word and perhaps hear the record that you have in an unrelated field. But if you have gone through the local government, I have an opportunity to judge you, to assess you, and to say, yes, this is a gentleman who has the capacity, who has the necessary tenacity, interest, and capability, and is committed to community development and so on, and I can see him being a good parliamentary representative. That is, of course, a threat to the incumbent, but we have to accept that in a democracy, these are the institutions and the mechanisms that have to be put in place for good governance, for proper and effective democracy. Otherwise, you'll continue to complain about those of us who are there, and the fact that you have to take what you get because the system is so designed that it limits what you get.
Crime remains a major issue,
yes,
in your constituency again. And just prior to the general election of 2016, the United Workers' Party would have promised to deal with that particular scourge, that bugbear.
Yes.
How were you able to, or if you were able to successfully address crime at the constituency level? Because it appears that you might have not fared too well as far as your responsibility to tackle crime at the constituency level.
Well, you see, I mean, when we discuss matters of that, these are emotive discussions, and then people tend to engage in a lot of speculations. I try not to engage in such arguments. We look at the reality, we look at the facts. I will not agree with you. The reality does not substantiate that. The question I will ask is, has there been an increase in crime in Gros Islet? The answer is no. There are too many murders, as far as I'm concerned. One murder is too many. That is a matter we have to deal with, we have to address. What I will say to you now is that we have not arrived. We have not achieved our goal, we have not gotten to the end point that we are aiming for, but I'm satisfied that we are on the right course, that we are pursuing the right path. What has been done by our government in the last 3 years as far as tackling crime? You know that the forensic lab...
We're looking at a Gros Islet perspective.
Well, what happens at the national level has implications for Gros Islet. Direct implications at that. Because, I mean, the forensic lab is a national facility, and the solving of crime will affect every single constituency. So that is a major accomplishment as far as the government is concerned, as I am concerned. The opening of the forensic lab, the DPP being appointed. There was no DPP, we appointed a DPP, and provided additional resources for the office of the DPP. Now, you would know when you talk about crime, it's not just dealing with not just policing. There are various aspects of crime. There's the judiciary, there is, community involvement, there's the role that institutions in the community has to play, the role the family has to play, because I look at crime at a global level that we all have a stake and all have a role to play as far as crime fighting is concerned. And in that process, we have to look at the government have its role to play, and I'm not ducking that, but have we played our roles? We have equipped the police with more vehicles, bikes, in terms of the additional numbers of boots on the road. All of those initiatives will contribute towards. I mean, don't forget, we have an uphill task fighting against, and I have always claimed that this, how you call it, the report,
Impact
report, has had a major deleterious negative impact on the police force, at least on their psyche. I believe so. And I think it indirectly served as a boost to criminals, because I think what has happened has almost kind of put the police under some stress. And I'm not saying the police does not have to be accountable and must not come under scrutiny and that they must have carte blanche to do what they want. But at the end of the day, we cannot send a negative message that criminals have the upper hand on police, and we treat policemen in the execution of their duty after they have gone out of their way, risk their lives, put themselves on the line, and then they're going to be paying a price, being penalized for carrying out their duties and so on. I have a major problem with that, I can tell you that much. I'm hoping that this whole thing eventually goes away so that the police, in terms of their confidence, their psyche and everything else, can be satisfied that they have the full support of the government and the community behind them when it comes to crime fighting.
You know that impacts will not disappear on its own. This investigation will not disappear on its own. As far as you're aware, what is the government doing to address that? Because it appears that the government will have to appease foreign governments, the United States and European Union.
As operating in a country where where we are governed by law, the government itself has to respect and abide by the laws of the country. There's only so much we can do. The matter is no longer in our hands. We cannot interfere in the process anymore, because you cannot tell the DPP what to do. When the matter is in the hands of the judiciary, we have no say as far as that is concerned. And that is where it is now.
You think the DPP is not giving it the priority that it deserves?
I will not comment on the performance of the DPP. I will be out of place to do so. That would be irresponsible of me as a legislator, as one who is part of the legislature, to make such a comment. It will be very irresponsible of me to do so. And furthermore, I have no reason to make such a statement. I have no reason or justification to make such a statement. So I will not venture there. But talking about what we have done, I mean, in the commencement of the Safe City Surveillance Project, where we have in the CCTV cameras and so on, that goes a long way in terms of deterrence as well as solving crime. The radar that is being introduced will further equip the police to carry out their duties and to apprehend lawbreakers, criminals, and so on. There was no Coast Guard boats when we assumed office. There are 4 now. These are major steps. I mean, I've always been critical of my own government, and my biggest criticism of my government is our poor PR. I'm not going to be surprised if there are people within the government who doesn't even know of those accomplishments. That is a major accomplishment. Our borders were just open, exposed, unprotected. There was no Coast Guard boats in existence when we became the government. There are 4 now. That's a major stride in terms of securing our borders and policing what is happening in our waters as far as drug trafficking and other criminal activity is concerned. So these are accomplishments, these are steps that have been taken by our government in terms of crime fighting. Okay, and when you talk about security, we are about to embark on street lighting. Now, you may laugh at it and think, well, how does street lights affect safety, crime, but it's a safety measure to light up the place, to take away the cover that criminals have to do what they are doing. But we are looking at a program where we're going to introduce the LED lights. Apart from providing better lighting, it will be a cheaper alternative for government and so on. All of those little measures go a long way in the crime fighting effort. As well, my ministry, the Ministry of Youth Development and Sports, all of those ministries are engaging in programs to ensure that we nip it in the bud. Because crime fighting is not only for the police to go out there after a crime has been committed. What about the nurturing that takes place to prevent children, young people in the first place from getting involved in a life of crime?
But back to the impacts matter. Are you hoping that, what confidence you have that this will be settled before the 2021 general election?
Well, it is not a matter that is within my control, but I can tell you I am hoping then that matter can be settled sooner rather than later. I think it will be in the benefit of all to have that matter resolved and to put it to rest and have it behind us. I think it will be a major relief for the police. It will be a major benefit to the wider society, and it will be a plus for government.
When the broadcast continues in just a moment, we'll be looking at, from a national perspective, the performance of the United Workers' Party administration over the last 3 years. You're watching Newsmaker Live with my guest, Acting Prime Minister Mr. Leonard Spider Motut, who is also the MP for Grosile and the Minister with responsibility for equity, social justice, local government, and empowerment. Stay with us. Watching Newsmaker Live, thank you so much for staying with us. We are also on Facebook page, so try to log on and also comment as well via Facebook. We'll be giving you the opportunity later so that you'll be able to call, and also we'll be putting you on the air with your questions and comments for my guest is the Acting Prime Minister, as well as the MP for Grosile, the Minister for Equity, Social Justice, Local Government and Empowerment, Mr. Leonard Spider Motut. 3 years come tomorrow since the United Workers' Party has been in office. what kind of justification can you give my viewers to indicate that the performance has been one that you can say with confidence has been successful?
Well, at the end of the day, I would prefer if we are judged at the end of the day. However, along the way, an assessment has to be made. You have to evaluate at each stage. At this juncture, after 3 years, evaluate our performance. Where are we? Tim, like I said earlier, we have not arrived, but we are on the right path. I am pleased to say that all the indicators are showing that we are on the right path. I am satisfied that we are on the right path when our government can, well, the major promises that we made, the 5 to stay alive, this was knocked off pretty early in the day, and those were accomplished. The reduction in the VAT to 12.5%, the amnesty in hospital bills, the amnesty with property taxes, and all of these things were dealt with. But what are the things that I am pleased to say that I'm happy to see? Let's start with the economy. What direction are we heading? We have seen economic growth, some 8% in economic growth for the 3 years that we are here. Now, if you ask me, I want to see more, I want to see better, but definitely you cannot argue that we are heading in the right direction. Debt to GDP. In 2015, we had debt to GDP of 67.7%. As of 2018, it went down to 64.9%. Again, a move in the right direction. We are heading in the right direction. We are on the right path. You know, there are other indicators in tourism, increasing both overnight visitors and cruise ship passengers. Of course, that is a trend that we have seen for a while. That continues to happen. This is what we want to happen. This is what is happening. There's a primary surplus. The fiscal deficit is manageable. It is within manageable limits. And for me, Tim, for me personally, the biggest accomplishment, unemployment rate. Because you can do well. Those statistics may speak in glowing, flowery terms, but the reality to the average man and woman may be something different. But when I see that our unemployment rate, when we came in, it was over 24%, and it's now down to 20%. I am satisfied. Now, don't think I'm satisfied with unemployment being at 20%. That is not what I'm saying. I'm satisfied that it is heading in the right direction. We have a decrease in unemployment, especially when I see that we have made a dent in youth unemployment. I'm saying we are heading in the direction. Let's step on the gas and let us improve on that performance even more, so that by the end of the day, not only that we are heading in the right direction, but we will accomplish our goal in terms of what we set out as goals for ourselves.
But we all know that governments normally say that there's been economic growth, there's been reduced unemployment and so on. But it is for the people to make that determination. And it is come general election day that those people would determine whether they can re-employ that government or not. Because I remember the reign of the previous Senatorial Labour Party administration, and they were saying that everything was hunky-dory, that they had done well in a number of areas in terms of infrastructure, in terms of various projects, and yet still the people decided that they did not want to renew their contract. Now, I keep on hearing that a couple of people are calling the various talk shows and so on and saying that they are not feeling the economic growth that this government continues to make reference to.
Of course, if you have 20% unemployment, there's a significant number of people who are not affected positively as yet. So you will have people saying that they're not feeling it. The point is, there are less people saying so. And I'm not here giving you figures from the Minister of Finance or any of my cabinet colleagues. I don't want their figures. I'm not quoting their figures. I'm quoting the figures from the Statistics Department, from the technical people in the ministries. And so when the Labour Party was saying they were doing well, but the statistics were suggesting otherwise, that's up to them. That's why I said to you, I'm here to say to you what the reality is and to tell you the verifiable truth. I'm not giving you my figures. I'm not giving you any subjective analysis. I'm telling you what the figures say, the independent figures say. And so when I quote those figures here, I'm not just pulling it out of a hat. I'm not just pulling it from where I'm sitting. I am telling you what the objective analysis tells us as to what the situation is. And I'm satisfied that we are heading in the right direction based on those objectives, the stats that are in front of me.
But you don't think that we could give greater credence to the performance of the government if we carry out a poll? Let's say a poll is commissioned by the government, conducted by respected regional pollster like Cadres.
Yeah.
From
but
Barbados.
you see, I recognize the role of polls, and I understand that is a scientific device that can be used to assess and ascertain what the situation is. But polls, many things can be done with polls, but polls can be manipulated and so on. The best poll you can ever have is the general election. That is where you will know how people feel and so on. And I'm satisfied.
Would you be comfortable going into a general election tomorrow on the 3rd anniversary
certainly
of
not.
the United
Certainly
Workers'
not.
Party?
For the simple reason that we have not accomplished all that we have set out to do. We have not accomplished what we promised. However, remember one thing. We made those promises on the basis that we have a 5-year term. We are only 3 years into our term, and I am telling you that already the indicators are showing that we are heading in the right direction. So I'm satisfied. By 5 years, you and the general public, the objective citizens of this country, will be satisfied that this government has done what it promised it would do, what it set out to do, and that their lot is better. They have seen an improvement in their quality of life, in their standard of living, and their lot has been improved, and that the future is brighter for their children. That is what I want to know, that I can stand on a platform of the United Workers' Party and proudly proclaim, and that it cannot be disputed, and that it will be endorsed by the average citizen of St.
The country's healthcare problem remains an area of immense concern. 3 years into the life of this government. Don't you believe that the Alan Chastanet administration should have already dealt with the St. Jude reconstruction, or the reconstruction of the St. Jude Hospital, also the commissioning of the OKEU Hospital?
Okay, it should have, but do not forget that sometimes you make certain assumptions, but when you get in and to deal with the actual reality, you realize it is fraught with complications and problems. It is not as simple and straightforward as one might think. OKEU, we are now phasing the opening of the OKEU hospital. Okay? In terms of the planning for the hospital, you built a new hospital that costs $100 million, but you do not take into consideration the expenditure that will be required for the operation, the running and maintenance of that hospital. So you have a problem. This is going to cost quite a lot of money to run and operate. We're not just going to open it and then at the end of the day we provide substandard services and we're not able to
But why should it have taken 3 years to carry out an assessment of the health infrastructure in St. Lucia?
It did not take 3 years to carry out an assessment. We took part of the time to carry out an assessment, and work has been done in that time.
But work should have been completed, particularly in the case of the St. Jude Hospital?
If you're doing something, you have to do it well. We could rush and open it and have a disaster on our hands. We want to know that when this hospital is fully commissioned, that St. Lucians have health care in terms of its quality second to none. What we promise to St. Lucians is affordable access to quality healthcare, not just healthcare, to quality healthcare. And that just does not only entail what happens at OKEU and St. Jude's. The primary healthcare facilities at the constituency level has a critical role to play in providing this quality healthcare. Because at the end of the day, we cannot afford to neglect primary health care and have an influx of people coming for secondary care and tertiary care at our higher level institutions that we cannot afford. If we can, like I said when I was talking on our health fair that took place in Grosley on Sunday, like I said, it's cliche, but I like the saying that prevention is better than cure. But I like even more the fact that prevention is cheaper than cure. And we have to bear that in mind. There are little measures that can be taken at the community level, at the primary healthcare level, to prevent, especially some of the lifestyle diseases, the non-communicable diseases that we are seeing that are prevalent in St. Lucia and wreaking havoc at the family and community level.
Within the last 3 years of this government as well, there have been some controversies resulting in 2 government ministers resigning. People really do not like controversies during the reign of any administration, to the extent that people either have to be fired or have to be dismissed or have to resign. What say you to those 2 individuals who are to exit the cabinet of this administration? And how should people view this in the context of wanting to have a government that is stable and that is free of any kind of controversy?
Okay, first let me say to you, I am not in a position to pass judgment on any of the gentlemen. I'm not prepared to do that. What I will say to you is that I'm a part of a government that if certain situations arise that we have to respond to, it is our obligation, our responsibility to respond to it, and we have responded to it. There are some who say that the response was even too harsh on the part of the government. But this government wants to uphold a certain minimum standard, and it is not a condemnation of any individual or to pass any judgment on anybody. But if we deem that a situation has arisen that has become untenable or puts the government operations or the government institution in disrepute or in any way hinders or causes a distraction or in any way affects the performance, the image, and the operation of government, then action has to be taken. And that is what has been done. That is what has been done.
Why wasn't an explanation given for Mr. Jimmy Haynes' resignation from the government?
Well, you cannot ask me that question, because like I said, I'm not in a position to pass judgment. But in the judgment of the Prime Minister, who has the prerogative to determine who sits in his cabinet, he felt that a situation had arisen, and in communication and deliberation with the gentleman, between them, they felt the better course of action would be for him to tender his resignation, and that is what was done.
And in the case of Dr. Ibolis, Raymond, it seemed that something that was lingering, that was prolonged.
Yeah.
And in the end, we saw the back of the public service minister.
Well, again...
Don't you think that those things can do irreparable damage to a government?
I don't think so. If anything, I will tell you, if you ask, you seem to be forcing me to make a judgment. I'll make a judgment for you. If you ask me, that is commendable on the part of the government to deal with a situation when it arises. And that is what was done. So it appears to me, damn if you do, damn if you don't. In any case, I think you should. And the matter was dealt with.
Because invariably people always expect that whenever there is some concern and there is a lingering problem, that whoever that prime minister is will dismiss that individual or will sanction that person or discipline that individual. But in St. Lucia, whether it has to do with the United Workers' Party or the SLP, the problem must prolong, and eventually, quote unquote, the individual has to resign.
That's not a fair statement.
Dismissed.
That's not a fair statement. And I say to you, I do not engage in subjective discussions, debate, and arguments when it comes to politics. I deal with facts. I deal with reality. In what way was the situation prolonged in the case of Jimmy Henry?
I'm just saying.
I'm just saying that what you're saying there's not an accurate
The first
statement.
question I asked you was whether an explanation was not given for his resignation.
Right.
So that is still hanging in the air.
But you see, I have to trust the judgment of Mr. Henry and the Prime Minister in determining that the situation was such that it necessitated the resignation of Mr. Henry. I have to trust their judgment on that. And do not forget, it is the prerogative of the Prime Minister to determine who sits in his cabinet. So if for some reason tomorrow the Prime Minister decides, for whatever reason, it may be a reason to do with criminality, unethical behavior, some immorality, or even personal situation that renders a minister incapable or unable to carry out his duties, or that his presence will impede the progress of the government in any way, then a decision has to be taken. That's what leadership is about. Leadership entails taking harsh, difficult decisions at times. But if you're asking me to make any judgment, especially if it's of a moral issue, I'm in no position to make any moral judgment on anyone. I'm in no position to do that.
What about some of the issues that you believe that the government could have done better, areas government could have done better in? Because early on you touted the achievement of the government.
I just started, your program is far too short for me to tout the achievements of government. We have not spoken about agriculture, we have not spoken about health in any great extent. You have not spoken about social services. We have not spoken about many of the areas in which we have begun to make significant strides. I mean, if we have to talk about the accomplishment of this government, there are lots of accomplishments that I can point out at the end of the day. I mean, in terms of investment, in terms of all of those things. And, I heard the opposition, and they're very good at, I always say that, I give credit where credit is due. The St. Lucia Labour Party is a well-oiled, very efficient, very effective opposition machinery. And that is why I think they should stay where they are, because they do a good job there, right there. When they're in government, it's a different story. They cannot grow the economy. They cannot manage the unemployment rate. They don't perform well in government. In opposition, they are very effective. So what have they been doing? Touting that we represent family, friends, and foreigners. And I don't know if any of my colleagues want to back away from that, but I think we should. That's what we should represent. But I hope they take into consideration that all St. Lucians are our friends. All St. Lucians are part of the family. And the foreigners, let's not chase them. The investment that we're looking for, we prefer to have foreign investment because we're bringing in. That doesn't mean we're shutting the door to local investment. We want to have local investors because these are the people who would stay the course and stay there through thick and thin. But we also want to inject foreign investment, which will bring in foreign capital to our shores, create further employment for our people and so on. We have no issues with foreigners. And besides, I'll be the last person to sit here and condemn anybody and call them foreigner. My mother was a Monstrasian, and I grew up hearing people refer to her as foreigner, go back where you come from and so on. So I'm a little sensitive to even that nomenclature, But if you come, Tim, and you are prepared to abide by our rules, you are prepared to go by the laws and contribute to the development of these countries, I have no issues with you. Because I'm hoping that the St. Lucians, some of them are first cousins of mine in Guyana and those countries, who went there when things were bright in those countries, that they don't treat them as second-class citizens, discriminate against them and so on, just because they are not natives of the country. I'm hoping that. The St. Lucians that are in the United States and other countries, some of my immediate family, I'm hoping that they do not have to go through that. So don't think I will engage in that kind of behavior, condemnation of people because we refer to them as foreigners. And so I am not part of that. I want to invite the foreigners, especially, in particular, the foreigners will come to contribute to national development, will make a contribution to our development, our advancement, and our growth of our economy. I have no issues, no problems with them. And Tim, you are my friend. Every other St. Lucian is my friend. We are part of one family, and that is what the United Workers' Party represents, a government for all.
Any disappointments as far as the government's stewardship is concerned? Where you believe that the government could have done better? What areas?
Well, between us, I have lamented, and I probably have a role to play that I've not been as efficient as I should be in that regard. In terms of dismantling some of the bureaucracy to make things happen much quicker, I become a little impatient sometimes and frustrated with the inaudited delays that exist with implementing and getting anything done in this country. And my biggest criticism and condemnation of my government is the poor PR that, successive United Workers' Party governments display. Poor PR. And again, you may say to me that I have a part to play in ensuring that that is not so. And yes, you may be correct, but that doesn't change the fact that we are dismal when it comes to PR. Because let me tell you something. If the Labour Party was in office today and they had half the accomplishment of this government, you would hear the trumpets blaring and blasting every day in your ears. But what? It reminds me of that analogy that was made between Labour Party and St. Lucia and United Workers' Party, where one is referred to as a yard fowl and the other as a turtle. And it is said that the yard fowl will lay one egg and cackle the whole day, keep all the setup noise that you can imagine, as opposed to the turtle that comes ashore, lays over 100 eggs, and quietly crawls back into the sea without any fanfare, without, any uproar or big touting of accomplishment and so on. That is the UWP.
You're watching Newsmaker Live, and my guest, the acting Prime Minister, that is Mr. Leonard Spider Mottut, also the MP for Gros Islet and the Minister with responsibility for equity, social justice, local government, and empowerment. When we come back, we'll be hearing from you. Time to stand by to call. Newsmaker Live will be back in just a bit.
People, yo, you can hear me clear?
Yeah, man, I hear you clear for now, eh?
I checking the phone are there.
Yeah,
checking the phone.
you can hear me. I hear you loud and clear.
All right, thank you very much, sir.
For now, Junior, for now.
You have jokes. I need to get called. Thank you.
Welcome back. Thank you so much for staying with us. You're watching Newsmaker Live right here on DBS Television. We'll put the telephone number on screen so that you can call right now with your questions and comments for my guest. Once again, the acting Prime Minister is also the MP for Gros Islet and the Minister with responsibility for equity, social justice, local government, and empowerment. We've been reviewing his performance as MP and also reviewing the performance of the government over the past 3 years. Actually, tomorrow will mark the 3rd anniversary of the United Workers' Party administration. So it's a good time for you to call to give your own assessment and also to pose your questions to Mr. Leonard Spider Mottut. I think we already have a caller line, do we, Mr. Producer? Okay, we have a caller line. Good evening, Newsmaker Live, you're on the air.
Good night, Tim.
Good evening to you, caller.
Mr. Mottut, bonjour.
Bonjour.
Mr. Mottut, I hear you say that when they are getting power, not one of the Coast Guard was working. I'm telling you that's not true.
Well, I don't know where you get your information from, but I'm
telling you, that's my feel.
Mm-hmm.
I tell you, there was Coast Guard working.
You are from the Marine Unit?
Hello? I'm a member of the Marine Unit.
No, caller, head up. I will not allow you to make a mockery. Hold on.
Tim.
Hold on. I don't allow you to make a mockery of Newsmaker.
There's no mockery.
Hold on, caller. Hold on, sir. Hold on. I know you for a fact, so do not pretend and do not try to mislead my viewers.
There's no misleading. I'm putting your name.
Well, identify yourself, sir. Identify. What's your name?
My name is Clendon Louis, man. There's nothing to hide on that.
Clendon Louis?
Yeah.
And you are a member of the Marine Unit of the Police Force?
No. I work with them.
You work with them?
Yeah.
In what capacity?
as engineer.
You are the engineer. Okay, I disagree with you, but anyway, continue.
I am putting to Mr. Spiderman too. He said that there was not one Coast Guard boat that was working. And
That's
that's
operational, yeah.
And to be said, they used to say that the defender was out of the country. That wasn't true. So I want to hear what you have to say on that.
All right, thanks a lot.
I will repeat the comment that I made. I said when we assumed office, none of the boats were operational, and now we have 4 in operation.
Once again, we continue to take your calls. You are watching Newsmaker Live right here on DBS television, and my guest, the acting Prime Minister, and he's also the MP for Grosley, Minister for Equity, Social Justice, Local Government, and Empowerment. I think we already have another caller line, do we? Hello?
Yes, hello.
Hi, good evening to you, caller.
Yes, this is Dr. Anthony Ferdinand of the Christian Fellowship for All.
Can you speak up, please?
Yes, this is Dr. Anthony Ferdinand of the Christian Fellowship for All People. I want to say good night to Acting Prime Minister Leonard Mantut. I believe that you are doing a good job.
Thank you, sir.
The government is going on the right path. I believe that the Prime Minister is doing the right thing for the country, also the Mayor of St. Lucia. I just want to give you my opinion. Keep up the good words, sir, the good works. Keep it up, and may God bless y'all for the 3 years. For me, y'all have kept your promise, and keep up the good works. God bless you, sir.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
How do you react when people call the various programs and give their assessment of the stewardship of the government, and if they say that you're doing a good job, and if they're saying that you're not doing a good job, and so on? Well, how do you deal with that?
Well, I'd like to know that it's based on objectivity, and not just because you support our party that you say we're doing a good job. You see, I mean, there's a place for criticism, objective criticism. I would like to know that people are objective, and based on XYZ, I think you all are doing a good job. Based on XYZ, but you're falling short here, falling short there. I think it is a plus for us to have that kind of check from the people whom we serve to know exactly where we stand.
I think we have a caller line. Good evening. Newsmaker Live, you're on the air.
Yes, hello, good evening.
Hi, good evening to you, caller.
Yes, hello. I just want
You'll have to speak up a bit, please.
Yes, you hear me now?
A little better.
Okay, I just want to commend the minister and his team for all the hard work they've been doing in Grosley. You know, I noticed, you know, a lot of things is happening in the communities, and I want to say that is very good.
Thank you, sir.
That's it?
Yeah, I just want to encourage the minister, you know, with this whole...
Okay, caller, you'll have to speak up a bit, or I don't know if you have to increase the volume or something, but it's a little low. But continue.
Okay, yes, you hear me now?
Yeah, but go ahead.
All right, I'm just encouraging the minister for, you know, the people need to look at the restructuring of Grosley. It is very big, you know, and we need to ensure that we get the proper resources for the people. You know, this thing really needs to be looked at.
Okay, thanks a lot.
It's a work in progress, and we are definitely working towards it, and it is happening incrementally. You will see you'll see a big improvement, a boost in activity in the very near future, especially as it comes to road improvement, because that is a major problem, as you cited earlier, in Grosley, Tim, and so that is an area that I'm focused on, I'm concentrating on heavily, but that is not to say that we are going to forget the other areas that needs development. I mean, health, education, I mean, other institutions, for example, the credit union that I've been speaking so much about, it's that in the making. These are the little institutions that will make a difference in people's lives. And, you know, for example, when it comes to healthcare, I'm pleased to say that I've made promises as far as the polyclinic is concerned. We now have 7 days a week of service at the polyclinic up to midnight every day, including weekends and holidays. So these are incremental steps in the right direction. Hopefully one day we will have 24-hour service. That is ultimately my goal.
I think we have a caller 9.
Hi, good evening.
Hi,
good evening to the
Welcome
Minister.
to Darhead Broadcasting Service. I'm sorry, we are not able to answer your call at the moment.
Right. I just
If
want
you know
to
your password,
Right, we have a little disturbance there. We have two lines there, and we have some interference on the line. So let us see if we could get this rectified, and we will continue to take your calls. Once again, This is Newsmaker Live on DBS Television. I'd like to apologize to our previous caller. We had to cut you off because there's some disturbance there, some confusion. Do we have another call in line, Mr. Producer? Hello?
Hi, good evening.
Welcome to Down Here Broadcasting
Good
Service.
evening to the Minister.
I'm sorry, we are not able to answer your call at the moment. If you know your...
Okay. Do we have to take a break, Mr. Producer? Or do we continue the calls? Hello? Okay, we have lost a call. But let's see if we could get some more calls in, and so that you could pose some questions to my guest, once again, Mr. Leonard Spider Mutut, who is also the island's acting Prime Minister. Don't want to pose any question to you and then to stop midstream, but let's see if we can get another call in line. Good evening.
Welcome to Down Here Broadcasting Service.
Okay. All right. Let's focus on the questions for you there. You were making a point about the constituency in terms.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was saying that I'm not only focused on brick and mortar, not strictly physical infrastructure, but there are other institutions and other things that have been put in place that will improve the lot of the people. For example, in almost all of the rural communities in my constituency, Labon, Deramo, Rivière-Mita, Lafayette, Moshi, Grand Rivière, we have ICT centers that have been established. We are on the verge of opening an HRDC, and I'm hoping that we will not be calling it Grosley HRDC. We are going to have a competition among the school children so that they can come with something more jazzy than that in terms of the name for that structure, where we're going to have, it's not just the building, we're going to have a theater. And do you imagine what that is going to do for the performing arts in Grosley? We're going to have conference facilities. We're going to have a training room, which is critical for training of young people in the constituency in various fields, various areas. We're going to have a music lab in that building. So when you talk about a resource center, a resource building, I mean, of course, we have a restaurant which is there to generate revenue and so on. I'm pleased to say that we are in the process now of setting up a management committee, and it has been made clear that they want the parliamentary rep to have nothing to do with the operation and running of that facility. I'm pleased to stay out. But
I see we have a caller line.
Yes.
Good evening, Newsmaker Live, you on the air?
Yeah, good night, Tim. Good night.
Good evening to you, caller.
Yes, good evening.
Very impressive.
Thank you.
Contribution you're making to us on behalf of us.
Thank you.
And I wish to find out why you are so much interested in decriminalizing drugs.
I'm interested in decriminalizing drugs.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say to you, I mean, it's not decriminalizing drugs. You will not hear me make any statement about cocaine, crack, and those things. We're talking specifically about cannabis. And I personally...
All right. Give me a little chance there.
Oh, sorry.
Specifically. Drugs, okay, specifically marijuana, all right. Once you realize that will have a serious effect on our watershed, deforestation, and even more crimes, more drugs, something that has brought the law in disrepute, and also the police flabbergasted, they don't know. And, it starts to be very confused. In that the police took it on their own to go to the academy to take a decision, a vote, and as to the pros and cons, who is for it. The police has to wait until the government take its serious determination with Joe Public, before they are there to execute the law, whatever measures government come with. So what discipline is going on? Is there any discipline between police and government and the country?
Okay, let me get a
And
position.
as far as I see it, this this decriminalization of the drugs, considering the measures, the drastic measures that used to be taken by Joe Public as well as the police, that's a crime in itself. That was common.
Okay, let me get a reaction. Let me get a reaction from the acting prime minister.
Okay, Tim, the gentleman has taken me into an area that is controversial, and most politicians would rather not speak on this. I know it is controversial, but I will have my views on it. I think as a leader, sometimes you have to be responsible enough to say what you think. And in a democracy, I will respect the views of the majority at the end of the day, but that is my position as far as it is concerned. Now, I don't like the general broad term of drugs. When you say drugs, you're talking about crack, you're talking about heroin, you're talking about cocaine and so on. I have no place in my views, in my estimation, that for these things in society. That it is absolutely outrightly condemned on my part. When we're talking specifically of cannabis, marijuana. Now, the gentleman is talking about decriminalization of marijuana. I mean, I'm not advocating the widespread use, uncontrolled use of marijuana. Smoking is bad for your health. Smoking of cigarettes, smoking of any leaf, smoking of tobacco, smoking of marijuana is bad for your health. So we have to educate people about that. Does that make you a criminal? Well, you're not a criminal when you smoke tobacco. We have to look at all kinds of drugs. Alcohol, for example, the consumption of alcohol. At one time, alcohol was illegal. Many people don't know that. But it has been made legal. I am prepared without any, and I have to say, I don't normally do that. I have no scientific basis to substantiate what I'm saying. I do not know of any survey, any data to back up what I'm saying. But I am of the view that alcohol causes more problems in our society, far more than marijuana. In terms of drunken driving, the accidents and things that it causes, the abuses at home by husbands in particular who are under the influence of alcohol, and the lack of productivity on the part of especially our men in this country because of excessive use of alcohol and so on. Now, I'm a Christian, but I consume on a social level a limited amount of alcohol because I know the excessive use of alcohol is bad for my health. That is a health decision. I don't think you're a criminal. I think you're stupid if you abuse alcohol because of what it does to you and the consequences for society. Now, why was alcohol decriminalized? You know, with the legalization of alcohol, now there's a difference between legalization and decriminalization, which I don't want to go into right now. That's a complicated, kind of confusing argument to a certain extent. But with the legalization of alcohol, a lot of the crime associated with the sale, the smuggling, the use of alcohol diminished. Okay?
And you're saying the same will happen?
The same will happen with marijuana. He spoke of deforestation and so on. There's deforestation taking place right now because whoever it is who is cultivating marijuana has to hide and go up in the hills, in the bushes and so on, and that is where the deforestation is.
I'm sorry.
If it is legal, it can be controlled, just like bananas and so on. We can identify and earmark areas for cultivation where it is done and so on. And the crime that is associated with marijuana will be diminished. I'm convinced of that.
Once again, we continue to take your calls. You are watching Newsmaker Live on DBS Television. Good evening, you're on the air.
Good evening, Tim.
Hi, good evening to you, caller.
Good evening, Mr. Acting Prime Minister.
Good evening, sir.
I just want something clarified. Because I remember some time ago, last week in the commissioning of the works at the market, I understood from the news that the Prime Minister had traveled to England with a team from planning to look at the different markets, right? Hello?
Well, let me clarify this quickly. So, when is it to look at different markets? Market for bananas?
No. I'm talking about the St. Catherine's market because I remember he was saying something about he went to.
I'm saying there's a mix-up there. Do not misinterpret it. When they say they went to look at markets, that is places where we could sell our bananas, markets for our bananas, whether it be France, England, the supermarkets in England, and so on. That is what, based on the report that the Minister of Agriculture gave and the Prime Minister himself gave in Cabinet, that is my understanding. It's not to look at market structures, the building where things are sold. It is to look at where we can sell, who will be prepared to buy our product. That is what.
Okay, but I'm trying to bring a point across there is that yesterday with the interview with the opposition leader, he was saying that the market, the redesign for the market was done by a foreigner. Could you clarify that, please?
That is not true.
No, well, that's what I'm talking about, because I know Mr. Augustine Poyotis, who had done some planning, who did it because the mayor was saying
what
so.
What is new, caller? What is new? Isn't that what the opposition is best at? Propaganda, misinformation. I mean, isn't that what they're best at? And I mean, we shouldn't be. I'm not surprised. I don't know if you are, but this is the kind of misinformation, and very often we don't respond, so they go on with it and they get away with it. But and that's
but you see what happened. They say these things, and then it go around, and people mention it, people repeat it.
And you see, this is the kind of cheap politics that some of us engage in, to try to make political mileage on misinformation and falsifying things that we know that is incorrect. I have no time for that kind of politics, and I have a very little regard for people who engage in that type of politics.
Is that the extent of your contribution, caller?
No. I just we're clarifying it now that the design for the market was not done by a foreigner.
It was not.
Okay,
As Minister of Local Government,
so much.
I'm telling you it was not.
And we continue to take your calls. Already 8 minutes before 10 o'clock. You're watching Newsmaker Live on DBS Television with my guest, the Acting Prime Minister. Good evening, you're on the air. Hello? Okay, we lost that call, but continue to call us nonetheless. Once again, we're going up until 10 o'clock. Good evening, you're on the air. Okay, we continue to lose our calls, but continue to call us nonetheless. And then we'll be continuing to pose those questions to the Acting Prime Minister, Mr. Philip. I almost said Mr. Philip J. Pierre, but it's Mr. Lena Spider-Motut. All right.
Hello.
Yeah, we have a caller line. Good evening.
Mr. Spider, thank you for what you have done for us from Grand Riviere. I'm from the youth of Grand Riviere. Et puis, les bas partis à soutenir faire la menti tout seul. Ça y a dit c'est menti.
All right, thank you so much for calling. Once again, you're watching Newsmaker Live. We have just about 7 minutes left on the program, and I think we already have another caller line. Good evening. Hello.
Yeah.
Hi, good evening to you, caller.
Mr. Montu,
Yes,
you call all the roads except Vesicry.
No, Vesicry is earmarked to be done under a different program. It is part of, you see, when they talk about the highway to Grosile, before they do the highway, they have to do the bypass. Highway is being done, we have somewhere else to pass to go. Basically, is part of that program. But the National Road Rehabilitation Program is the roads that I listed will come under that one. But basically, don't think that the roads I mentioned are the only roads that are going to be
Thank you so much for calling, ma'am.
There are other roads to be dealt with. Like I said to you, I will be getting, for a change, I'm pleased to say I'll be getting the lion's share when it comes to road repairs. And I think my colleagues agree that I deserve it. My people rather deserve it.
Hello, good evening. You're on the air.
Hello, good evening.
Hi, good evening to you, ma'am.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, Mr. Montut, I heard, in fact, I just need to know what plans you have for Marisil, because Marisil seems to be one of the places which is being ignored.
No, if you listened when I listed.
Thank you so much for calling, ma'am.
When I listed roads that are earmarked to be done, there's the road going to the Calabasco Hotel. There is the road going to the Marisil Beach. There are a number of roads in Marisil and Corinth that are earmarked for repair as well. So Marisil was not forgotten. I ensured that we had a proper distribution. Of course, we're giving priority to the worst roads, but there's a proper distribution in all parts of the constituency. So Marisil is not neglected, Marisil is not forgotten.
Good evening, Newsmaker Live.
Hello, Timothy. How are you doing?
I'm okay, sir. Good evening to you.
I just want to speak to the minister, right?
Yeah.
Can I speak to him directly?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay. I noticed that there's a gentleman who sits under the bus shelter, Grosile, right? He's always he has one pants on him. Apparently, his head is not too good, but the gentleman actually is naked, right? I on one occasion I got some clothes for him and shoes and everything. He didn't want it, and I know the other persons who have done that. But the man is literally walking naked in Grosile. I want to know what the minister doing about the situation? Because apparently the man is not mentally stable. Somebody should kidnap this man and take him somewhere where he can get some help. What do you think, Mr. Strider-Montop? You are a man also, right?
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, caller. Well, that is a very disturbing situation. I mean, we have a few cases of that nature, and it is, sad to have situations like this, but these are situations that we have to address. Of course, you would appreciate that in government we have structures in place, like under my ministry, for example, you have the welfare department, you have human services, you have different departments that are responsible for various things, and it is the responsibility of those officers to deal with those situations. However, they have to be guided by certain protocols, by certain regulations, and that they ensure that they do not end up being cited for violation of anybody's rights and so on. So we have to be careful in how we deal with those situations. Also, a preferable approach would be to engage the family of the gentleman to see if they can participate in alleviating the situation and so on. I know efforts have been made in that regard, and efforts are continuing to deal with the situation. I'm hoping that very soon we can come up with a resolution. Now, I do not want to preempt the actions or efforts of the social workers and to tell them how to do their jobs, but I'm hoping that they will ensure that, because it is an issue for other users of the bus shelter and people around, and besides, he is a human being like all of us, and we should, when some of us find ourselves in these distressing circumstances, that we should look out for our fellow man and to take care of them.
You have a caller holding on. Good evening.
Afternoon.
Hi, good evening to you. Newsmaker Live, you're there.
Strider-Montop.
Yes, good evening.
Well, let me just touch on the last caller. Sometimes I think we call upon politicians and so on to micromanage agencies too much, And I think sometimes politicians probably, they play into that trap. The guy spoke of to me, social services, etc., or the ministry responsible really ought to deal with that. These are the people, the agencies of government. That is what they have to take care of. Anyway.
Thank you, caller. I'm happy and relieved to hear that. Because, people, if the pipe is busted, they won't call Wasco, they call me.
So that is what I call for before things cut me. I hear everybody talking about roads. My brother, the forgotten whole,
Inglewoods.
Not listed.
I tried to say it before you just to show you that you're not forgotten.
My brother, give me some attention, man. Please.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes,
that's all I'm calling you for.
But I'm inundated.
Thanks a lot.
You've just probably opened a floodgate, I'm inundated because I'm in so many bad roads in my constituency. I know that the current program will not address all of them. And I know how the people who will not get attention immediately, how they will feel. But it's an ongoing program.
Final call. Good evening. Newsmaker Live, you're on the air.
Good evening, Mr. Montrude. Good evening, Tim.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening to you.
I just wanted to ask Mr. Montrude if he's aware of a report that came out from, just 2 points I want to make. If he's aware of a report that came out from the CCB, I think about 2 weeks ago, which actually declared that economic activity in St. Lucia has actually even grown by only 0.6%. And that Persons Who Economists are actually saying, obviously when the final report is made, there might be adjustments maybe up to about 1%. So I don't know where Mr. Montrude got this. He said that the statistics department has actually released the information that he gave in relation to unemployment and these things. That's what he said.
Hold on. Let me clarify something to you there. Yeah. I said some of the information and the statistics that I'm quoting is from Statistics Department, some is from the Ministry of Finance, from the technocrats. That's what I said.
So you're saying that the Ministry of Finance, who obviously is headed by the Prime Minister, because you said you made it clear that the information that you got, you didn't take it from under the chair where you're sitting. You also said that it didn't come from the Prime Minister. You clearly said that it came from, I would say, the bureaucrats, right?
Yes, and
you said that you were given information that our economy has grown by 8%, when clearly the ECCB, which is responsible for, they are the finance institution of the Eastern Caribbean.
And what period were they citing?
Pardon?
What period were they citing?
But the ECCB, 2018, our 19, our last report, which is the one that I am assuming
Let me just clarify
citing now.
let me just clarify to you that I said that our economy has grown by 8% in the 3 years since we are in government. That is
I didn't hear you say 3 years, Mr. Montut. I mean, clearly I didn't hear you say 3 years because I've been listening to you very attentively.
He said 3 years, scholar. Over the 3 years.
But hold on. So cumulatively, our economy has grown. But does that make any sense at all? I mean, that is okay for people who don't understand, but we know exactly what's
If it doesn't come across as good news to you, it wouldn't make sense.
No, Mr. Montut.
Those of us who are best in this country, it makes sense.
No, hold on, Mr. Montut. You're saying that...
Are you disappointed that is the case?
No. As a matter of fact, I'm disappointed that our economy has actually decreased in development as compared to 2017, and it seemed to have continued to decrease. And so that's not for me a good sign. But I mean, that's actually, I'm happy to hear you clarify that you're looking at a cumulative figure, which actually I would think if we were going to look at our economy, if you were going to look at a cumulative figure, then we might as well count from 10 years ago. Because I mean, if every year... No, but Mr. Montut, I'm saying you count in 3 years, but I'm saying if you set them up cumulatively, we can go back 20 years and say how many.
I do not want to take credit or responsibility for what we are not responsible for. If you go back 10 years, then you're taking the term of the former government. Timothy was asking me in the 3 years since we're in government, what is our accomplishment?
But
so that is what I was responding to.
But Mr. Montut, most clearly, if that was what you were responding to, most certainly 2016-17 figure would not be the responsibility of your government. So effectively, you are taking credit for the figures that came from the last party. But I mean, I just wanted to clarify that. I just wanted to also make another point.
So we administered the budget of 2016. Most of it.
Yeah, but you did say it was a Labour Party. You did say it was a Labour Party budget, right?
But we managed it.
Right, but you did say it was a Labour Party budget. But I was going to say, Mr. Montut, I just also want to clarify something. A caller called before and made a statement about Philip JPS saying that the market was designed by a foreigner. That's a lie. And Mr. Montut, I would have thought that you would actually, I mean, you're a gentleman, trust me. Even if I'm sounding like I'm being hard on you, I respect you to some degree, okay, because I actually been listening to you, and I think you made a few good points. I'm not going to say no to some of the things that you're saying, even if I think some of it is just electioneering tactics, but you made a few points. The gentleman made a statement that Philip JPS said that the market was designed by a foreign architect or engineer, whatever it is, and you actually was going along with it. I think it sounded good to you. That's something. But I want to clarify that is not true.
Okay, thanks a lot. Final comments from you.
I wasn't going along with it. I stated that it was not true.
Okay.
Yes.
Final comments from you, Mr. Minister? And acting Prime Minister?
You know, I want to say to St. Lucians, after 3 years in office, that the United Workers' Party government is on the right track. Like I started, I'm going to end by saying we have not arrived, but we are on the right path. We require the support and the cooperation of all St. Lucians. All hands must be on deck if we are to achieve our goal in placing St. Lucia in the position that we want it to be. And by 2021, we are hoping that we'll make a significant dent in the unemployment rate, that will decrease our debt to GDP, that we will actually grow the economy significantly to the benefit, and that is important, to the benefit of most St. Lucians. And I advocate all the time to my cabinet that for that to have meaning to the average St. Lucian, there must be consideration for the distribution of wealth, because there can be growth, but for some. We want to ensure that all will enjoy and benefit from that growth, that prosperity that will be taking place under the United Workers' Party government. And there will be some inconveniences in the near future, especially for our road rehabilitation program. And at the end of the day, I expect, because I just came from a meeting tonight where we did some road rehabilitation and we inconvenienced the residents for a few days, but they understood, they cooperated. We're asking for cooperation in many spheres. In the area of security, we need the community, the schools, the churches, the clubs, the various organizations to work with us, work with the police. Let us all have hands on deck, because it is a collaborative effort, a national effort that will make a significant dent in that regard. We ask for your patience in giving us the opportunity to provide for you and fulfill the promise that we made for affordable, quality healthcare in St. Lucia as we continue in our efforts to open up OKEU fully and to complete St. Jude's and to continue the good work that we've been doing at the primary healthcare level in the various constituencies. When it comes to agriculture, the strides that we have been making, I hope and pray that under the leadership of the Ministry of Agriculture, we continue along that path and that we can open up new markets for our farmers, banana farmers especially, and that we can engage in diversification that we have spoken about so long, so much, that we can actually go into new areas that will bring benefit to our farmers and open up new job opportunities for young people. When it comes to training for our young people, the programs of the Ministry of Youth Development and Sports, the programs of the Ministry of Social Services, that is Equity, Social Justice, Empowerment, and local government, will play a part in ensuring that we bring about the social re-engineering that is required to ensure that we make our young people develop as contributors to the development of this country, useful citizens. In many other spheres, such as education, the good work that has been given, it is unprecedented the kind of money that has been spent on school plans in this country, and the innovation that is taking place in the area of ICT and the robotics and those kind of new developments that is taking place. We are about to embark on providing e-books to students in Form 3 as of September. That is a major development, where we're going to completely eliminate the use of textbooks for those students, reducing the expense that is incurred by parents currently on buying expensive textbooks. There are a number of initiatives that are taking place. I join other St. Lucians in saying that I want to see the full-fledged commencement of the reconstruction of Yuan-Ura International Airport, for what it will do for our tourist industry, what it will do in terms of the job creation that will be realized, what it will do for Vieux Fort as a whole. I hope that we can continue to attract foreign investment. I call on every St. Lucian to provide the facilitating, enabling environment that will encourage investors. And by that I mean, let's keep our environment clean. Let's make St. Lucia attractive. It is a naturally beautiful country. Let's not make it unattractive by our negative behaviors as far as is concerned, this indiscriminate dumping of garbage and so on. I call on the opposition to join in the effort, because when we do well, when St. Lucia does well, we all prosper, we all benefit. Stop the rhetoric in terms of putting forward for political gain and benefit the kind of rhetoric that will deter would-be investors from coming to St. Lucia. Do not obstruct the work of the government. Join with us in ensuring that you contribute to the development of this country. If you truly love St. Lucia and you want to serve the people as you say you do not stand in the way of progress and development. In any case, my final words is that nothing can stand in the way of momentum. We have developed some momentum, and you either join the progressive efforts of the St. Lucia government, or get out of the way and do not obstruct the work that is being done for the benefit of the people. So make your contribution, make a decision whether you're going to be for St. Lucia or against it. I want to thank all St. Lucians for the support that they have provided and confidence that they have placed in this government. After 3 years, we have seen that we have begun to go in the right direction. I am not satisfied. I know you are not satisfied. There's a lot more to be done, and I'm hoping that in the coming year, that this government can deliver far more than we have in the past 3 years.
Thank you so much, Mr. Acting Prime Minister, for being my guest on this evening's Newsmaker Live. To you, thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for contributing via your calls. If it's Wednesday, it's Newsmaker Live. Time now for the clip that peaked. Once again, as a broadcast, thank you so much for watching. Please join me tomorrow afternoon on Real FM 91.3 North and 91.5 South. That's for Newspin, and that's from 12:30 to 2 o'clock. My name is Timothy Paulion. Good night, and see you next time.